So hi, I'm Brad with Fenter Cranes. Today we're covering periodic inspections under CSA B167. But before we talk about what a periodic inspection includes, we need to be clear about who is qualified to perform them. So according to CSA B167 Section 6.2, periodic inspections must be carried out by a competent person, someone who is technically knowledgeable, experienced and trained in crane operation and maintenance. Working in the crane industry is just like any other trade, right? To be qualified to work on a crane, you more or less work an apprenticeship, and your apprenticeship isn't a trade test as such at the end. It's the amount of hours you've worked under a qualified technician, right? So the standard requires that inspectors be able to provide records of their training, knowledge of standards and safety practices upon request, and employers are ultimately responsible for ensuring their inspectors are competent. At a minimum, a crane inspector must have a recognized trade qualification as either a journeyman electrician, journeyman millwright, or an equivalent qualification in skills and knowledge that has been reviewed and approved by an appropriate authority, right? So, and plus 8,000 hours of direct experience working on the maintenance, repair, or manufacture of cranes or hoists, or working under the supervision of a qualified inspector or an engineer, right? So CSA also makes it clear anyone with less than 2,000 hours of crane experience may not perform inspection activities. If an inspector is working under indirect supervision, the supervising inspector or engineer must approve the inspection program, be consulted on discrepancies, and formally approve the inspection report. So this ensures that periodic inspections are only done by people with the trade skills and real-world experience to recognize defects that could compromise crane safety. In an earlier video, I discussed wire ropes and how an engineer called a wire rope on a crane, telling us that we installed the wrong rope. But the fact was that we installed the rope that the manufacturer spec'd, right? That's the difference between qualified personnel and an unqualified personnel when it comes to overhead cranes, right? The person might have a trade ticket, but have never gathered the required experience on overhead cranes, right? So they've got no real life or real world experience to recognize defects or recognize what's right even on an overhead crane, right? So you need to keep that in mind, that just because an engineer has a engineering stamp, it doesn't make them qualified through real world experience, right? And CSA brings light to this fact, right? So be careful who's checking your cranes. Make sure they actually have real world experience, because if they don't, their certification is actually useless to you, right? At the end of the day, it's on the owner to make sure that the person inspecting the equipment is or does have the trade skills and real world experience to recognize defects that could compromise crane safety. So in our industry, backyard mechanics, there's so many of them, guys working out their garages and so on, but you need insurance to cover problems in the real world, right? You need the experience on overhead cranes, which are vast when it comes to manufacturers and models today, right? So if you just started working on cranes yesterday, what experience do you really have, right? Or if you just started an industry last year and you've been thrown into overhead crane maintenance, what experience do you actually have on the overhead crane, right? It's not just like a gearbox running on a conveyor, right? If an overhead crane brake is not set properly, you'll drop a load and somebody may die, right? So what's included in periodic inspections? Periodic inspections cover all the same items as frequent inspections, right? You can have a look at section 6.4.2. Operational functions, hydraulic and pneumatic systems, hooks, ropes or chains, limit devices, function labels and brakes, plus a more detailed structural and mechanical review, right? So this checklist for periodic inspections would include structural and mechanical, deformed, cracked or corroded members like shafts and frames, loose or missing bolts, right? Many people miss that on their inspection. They don't look for loose or missing bolts. You don't find those by just walking along the ground, right? You have to actually take a look at the connections. Cracked welds, again, you need to be checking the welds, right? That's what a periodic inspection involves, and that's why you bring in skilled and competent inspectors. Sheaves and drums for cracks, distortion and wear. right? You're not going to see a crack on a drum when it's filled with the rope, right? The rope needs to be down at its lowest limit. Your shivs, often you need to lift the rope up so you can turn your shiv and actually have a look at it, right? Pins, bushings, couplings, gears, trolley stops and bumpers for wear or corrosion. Brake safety, so brakes for glazing, scoring, contamination or warping. You can't do that without disassembling the brake, right? So that's the only way you can comply with this part of periodic inspections. You need to disassemble the brake. So in order to disassemble the brake and put it back together properly, you need to know what you're doing. You need experience and training in these things, right? Hooks, retaining nuts and latches for deformation or damage. Electrically, pitting or deterioration of contacts. Controls must operate freely. Insulation of wires, festoons or power bars must be intact. Limit switches tested for accuracy or reliability. I just want to go back to pitting or deterioration of contacts. With the new contactors today, right, they're not like our old Cutler hammers and stuff where you could split them and the contact tips were replaceable. The new contacts today are all sealed units, right? You can't really see inside them, and those you can when you pop them. You know, these things are much cheaper than they were back in the day, right? But you can measure them with a multimeter, right? Contactors will give you a resistance value, and from that you can work out if it's in good condition, fair condition, poor condition, or needs to be replaced, right? We actually have this in our inspection reports by ohm value. Travel and drive components, wheels and rollers, check for wear, cracks or misalignment. Rope reeving verified against manufacturer's specs. Often just the general crane technician or general millwright or general electrician won't have access to a lot of these manufacturer's specs because a lot of them are proprietary, right? You won't get them unless you go through a crane company, right? That's all there is to it. Other items, labels and rated load signs must be legible. Gearboxes and hydraulic oil levels have to be checked. We actually top them up if they're low. It's part of our routine annual inspection or periodic inspection to our customers. We'll top them up, right? We won't just tell you, hey, the oil level's low and somebody else's problem. It costs money to bring another lift in if there isn't one on site, and it takes time to go back and do something when you were already there, right? Lower blocks inspected for corrosion or distortion. Sometimes this involves actually taking the block apart. Because you can't always get to everything, right? We found many times on inspections in some of the potash mines that the hooks are actually seized, and we need to strip the block to free it, right? Safeguards and shields confirmed and in place, so your machine guards and your electrical guards, so nobody bumps the buzz bar and all these type of things, right? The supporting structure must also be verified by documentation signed by an engineer or equivalent authority confirming it can carry the rated load, right? So what we'll look for is the drawings, the design drawings of the crane on the runway, which should be on file for the crane, right? Many times older cranes, these things have been lost over the years or ownership's changed and these things can't be found. That's a non-conformance on the inspection report, but the good news is that you can re-engineer existing equipment, right? It's a matter of taking the right measurements and having the know-how of what the engine will need to check the specifications, right? So documentation and logbooks, all inspections results must be recorded in the inspection, maintenance and repair logbook. CSA requires 2 records, the daily operator logbook for functional checks and the inspection logbook for periodic inspection and repairs. Both must be available for review for the entire service life of the crane, right? If Feta Cranes is doing your inspections, we maintain an electronic logbook of every crane that we inspect, right? So if you're doing your inspections annually with us, your logbook will be compiling in our system and it's available on request as a customer. So both must be available for review for the entire life. That's a key point there, right? Any hazard identified in an inspection must be corrected before the crane goes back into service. If a defect is evaluated and deemed safe for limited use, an engineer must provide written approval, the owner must sign off, and a correction plan must be documented, right? Let's talk about some key takeaways here. Periodic inspections must be done by qualified inspectors with trade qualifications and 8,000 hours of crane experience, right? They're required at fixed intervals based on crane class. They include structural, mechanical, electrical, and safety critical components. All findings must be documented in the inspection logbook. Hazards must be corrected before use. Without qualifications, documentation, and logbooks, the crane is not compliant. Right. So here at Fenter Cranes, we provide CSA compliant periodic inspections carried out by qualified crane inspectors. Within our business, we've actually trained our technicians, everyone we have working for us right now, up from day one. Right. So the guys have done almost like a full apprenticeship with us to become crane inspectors. Right. Many of our staff right now have been with us 7-8 years. Ongoingly, right, working in cranes under my leadership as the senior inspector and the president of Fenter Cranes, right. I also get out there and work with the guys on cranes, and when there's issues that perhaps they haven't seen before from a lot of the older cranes, I have the knowledge and experience to help them and teach them and train them on those aspects of it, right. Plus with our distributorships like DMAG, R&M, and Kito, we have access to a lot of stuff that a client usually wouldn't have, right? Even when it comes to cranes like Coney, etc., we can access them through the online stores and these type of things. So we can always make sure that you have what you need, right? We have, I mean, I've been in the industry since 1996. Believe me, I've got manuals, hundreds and hundreds of operating manuals, maintenance manuals, breakdown manuals from cranes you may never have heard of in industry, right? It's you collect them over the years because they're gold. Some of these manufacturers don't even exist anymore, but we still have the manuals, right? So all our training information, videos, and etc. are all available on our YouTube channel, Fenter Cranes. So follow us for more crane safety and maintenance insights. And remember, we're also your local DMAG and R&M service and parts center, and as well as Kito, right? So my name is Bradley Sliedrecht. Again, I'm the president of Fenter Cranes, and thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next video.